everybody, and welcome to panel number 2. This is a cure for wellness. Medical fitness is your next super pill. What a topic and what a panel. My name is Emma Barry, and I'm very lucky to reside here in sunny California, advising the FitTech company here for the USA, along with Stefan, Eric, and of course led by the formidable Natalia. And also I'm co-founder at Good Soul Hunting, which is an executive search brand placing good souls and purpose-driven health and wellness brands. So both of these businesses are going to be at IRSA next week. I know some of you, I had a quick look through who's attending this seminar. I know you'll be in Miami with us next week. Please come and say hi. We have a very special Fit Tech Club venue and an event coming up there as well. So we look forward to seeing our members there. And if this looks like a club you might like to join, please reach out to Natalia and I. We'd love to see if we're a fit for you. So in the chat, I was going to post a little warm up. Let me see if I can do that. No, I don't think it's going to happen. But please feel free to give us your questions as we move throughout this session. We have some amazing information to share with you, and even some stuff that got posted on LinkedIn this morning, which we'll be incorporating. So just a quick question to our folks that are listening out there. The average age of pharmacy customers in the USA is about 50 years old. If you look into the club market, the gym market, the studio market, the largest gym cohort is actually 18 to 34. So it skews a lot more millennial, Gen Z. And then of course, we've got the alphas coming up now who will pretty much be controlling the purse not too far away. So the question for you out there is, when will the gym replace the pharmacy for the 50-year-olds? That's a question for us all to ponder. We'd love to hear your answers in the chat there. So I am in awe at this panel today, and I have the great pleasure of moderating the following people. So please welcome to the stage today, Karl Sterling, who's going to give us a little wave. He's been very active on social media in the last 24 hours. Karl is a neurorehabilitation specialist and educator based in New York City. Now, while he has extensive experience across various populations, he primarily specializes in clients with Parkinson's and other movement disorders. So we're going to dig a little deeper on that today. Please welcome to the stage Eric Durak, who has a 30-year career, and you'll see that all these panelists are serious underachievers, 30-year career, and he's deeply invested in the trifecta of biology, exercise, physiology, and public health. And he founded medhealthfit in 1994. Now, this started off as a humble beginnings as a small certification company, and it's built into a behemoth that now covers a production company, medhealthfit TV show, a tech company which partners on healthy stats outcome software, also does population health data analytics, consults, and project management. So pretty much doing it all across the full spectrum of wellness. And then please welcome Dennis Ballwieser, who is the MD at Wort and Bild Verlag. Dennis studied medicine and also at the top journalism school in Germany as well. So he's bringing those two amazing skill sets together as the chief editor and managing director of one of the biggest media companies in Germany that directly addresses patients. So we're going to be talking about the messaging that is going in that direction. So we have 3 heavy hitters. We have tight time. So we're going to keep things moving so that we can get the most gems that we possibly can from these gentlemen. And please, once again, please do drop your questions in the chat so that we can stay relevant to you. Don't leave this webinar without having those questions answered. So our topic today is centering around the medical fitness model, one of the most compelling industry trends right now in 2022. So if we look back in time, the number of medical fitness centers has grown from 79 centers in 1985 to 1,400 here in 2018 or pre-pandemic. Now these stretch from cardiac rehab to silver sneakers, to PTSD, to treatment for Parkinson's, which we're going to hear about. But there is certainly a partnership forming between the medical community and the fitness community. So as our community's trust in big pharma and pharmaceutical companies declines, now is the perfect moment, the perfect storm for fitness to finally close that gap between traditional fitness and being at the forefront of healthcare or preventative care. So we're going to take a 3-chapter approach to this panel today and see how we can be a part of this amazing evolution. So we're going to kick off. I'm going to do a round the grounds with the panelists today. Let's consider how significant is the potential of medical fitness and how do we experience it through our work. So McKinsey this year estimated 45 billion extra years of quality life for people, humankind, over the next decade. So that's roughly 6 additional years for each of us if we get our health beliefs, reorient our material of public policy and the economy. So if we get a few big things right, we will live longer with quality of life. So I'm going to send this round to the group. We're going to go Karl, we're going to go Dennis, we're going to go Eric. How does the work that you do, just to get us started, address those 45 billion extra years, or whose lives at this point in time is your work making better? So let's kick off with you, Karl.
Well, thank you. I'm really honored and excited to be here. Thank you very much. It's a great topic. And so I have a movement disorders clinic, fitness, rehabilitation, movement, cognition, and memory. This is what we look on restoring. We want to restore as much quality of life as we can for people's. In a podcast that I've been doing for about 9 years now, about a year ago, I interviewed a Harvard professor. His name is Dr. John Rady. And Dr. Rady wrote a book called Spark. Another one, Go Wild. Another one is User's Guide for the Brain. But you can look him up. He's amazing. He talks, one of the first things he says in the interview is, humans were designed to move. I mean, think about that. Yet we have all this beautiful technology, and I love technology, and I can't wait for Miami next week. I will be there. But the deal is, it makes it easy for us not to move, okay? No matter how old we are, if we're using technology, we can not move more easily. So we run into a lot of different issues with this. My population that I work with is a population of people who live with movement disorders. About half of the people I have patients are with Parkinson's. Then we have MS and ataxia and dyskinesia and Charcot-Marie-Tooth. No matter what people are affected with, and no matter what their level of ability to move or not move, one thing we know for sure is if we get them moving, they feel better. It's like nature's antidepressant. We were designed to move, so we get moving. Somebody asked me to speak about motivation, and I can do this in about 10 seconds. I personally have dealt with lack of motivation to get moving all of my life, and I never really feel like exercising. When you're dealing with a Parkinson's population, you're dealing with a population who has a lack of dopamine in their brain. Okay, produced in the substantia nigra, which is actually dying. Okay, very slowly dying. Well, dopamine is more than just a neurotransmitter that goes from your brain through your nervous system to your body to tell your body what to do. It's also a motivator. It drives you towards your mate. It drives you towards the cup of coffee. It drives you towards a goal, a degree, an accomplishment, a marathon, anything. Okay. It also drives you to get up off the couch and start exercising. Well, one of the beauties of exercising is you can actually create more dopamine. So my answer to getting started to motivation is 3 words: just get started. Because it doesn't matter what you're going to do. If I'm going to do my taxes, I just start doing them, and then I'll get the energy to finish them, give them my accountant, and then they're done. I'll get the energy to clean the car, get the energy to work out. So once I get started, I get the energy to keep going. And this is a pivotal point for people to know and realize that if they just get started, then they're going to they're going to feel better. They can work on all the things we do for cognition, memory, and movement, reducing falls and fall risk, live a better quality of life. This helps the caregivers, the people that are around all the time. And just to finish up this answer, hopefully I'm answering the question, is you can take somebody, especially early on when we start working with them, who feels defeated and hopeless. And once they get started and we maybe have them do something that helps them to either improve or in some cases regain an ability that they lost. Here's a simple one: rolling over. First problem of the day. You wake up, open your eyes, can't roll over in bed. 100% success. Where's the wood? Knock on wood. That everyone we've worked with who has this problem is now able to roll over. You can, that little thing that's actually huge can take you from feeling defeated and hopeless to unstoppable and optimistic, and make you want to move more. So just get started.
Fantastic advice. Thank you, Karl. I'm going to ask you one more question so that I can do the specific ones as we go. I just saw this morning. I'm not sure if you know Mohammed Iqbal, from the CEO of Sweatworks, has just announced that on LinkedIn that the FDA has just cleared Rune Labs to use the Apple Watch to monitor Parkinson's, paving the way. So of course we have to move in the real world. Do you think this is the beginning of a whole lot of helpful things that are going to really accelerate help in that direction?
I saw that and I'm so excited because, we've been trying to work with the insurance companies and various entities to even reimburse people partially for what they pay for. We're out of pocket here in my facility. I work in a medical place. I own a business here, but so the doctors are great. They're sending people here, but they're out of pocket. But and not to diss anybody, I mean this respectfully. I don't mean to talk negatively, but a lot of the standard, let's say PT or OT that people will get isn't what they need, but that gets paid for. No, there's no harm done. But this whole idea that the FDA is going to clear something, anything at all, like the Rune watch, we use Whoop here a lot. We use a lot of different technology to measure data, because if you're not assessing to get data baseline, you're guessing.
Right.
All right. And you might be a really good guesser and really good at it. But if you can get hard data from different things, we have insoles we use that measure data, the Plantiga insoles and the electroskip that we can use too. It's amazing. So this is such a cool thing to know that they've cleared this. I'm very excited.
Yeah, as always. Thank you so much, Karl. Dennis, moving to you. You're the chief editor for Germany's most popular patients magazine. So you've got a huge and influential audience. What do you think needs to happen before we can actually see your magazine in every gym or in many, many more places so people can share that good knowledge?
Well, I guess, Emma, if we're doing a good job, then at least in German-speaking countries, most people who are going to the gym or who are clients of FitTech companies or fitness companies, any fitness outlet, should already be using our information. We chose to use the pharmacy as a way to get health information out to the people, because in Germany, a pharmacy is the least it is the health outlet that puts the least hurdles in the way of patients who are having a hard time to gain access to health information that they are able to understand and that they are able to use. I'm not talking about people who have the means and the availability to access and understand any health information. I'm talking about the mass of the people who are, at least in German-speaking countries, having a very hard time to comprehend any health information that you might give them. I'm talking about information in the doctor's office, in clinics, in hospitals, and information that is provided by pharmaceutical companies with their products. And since a pharmacy is a place where anyone may visit during opening hours without making an appointment, without revealing who they are or what they might have in their background, but they're always seeing health professionals who are able to give them information that is understandable and that they might use in their personal life. That is the way we chose to distribute our magazines. And so hopefully those people who are wanting to make use of fitness in their daily lives are already being reached by our information. But I'm sure, and I'm sure Karl and Eric can tell you more about that in the coming minutes. There's a big hurdle between understanding what you have to do and actually doing it. And we know that as well. We know that most of the information that we put out there is being read and is being understood, at least partially, but might not being used in the daily lives of patients or patients to be. And I think that is the next big thing between fitness and the medical industry as a whole, to unite in a way to make easy ways to do something for your well-being more accessible for all the people out there. I remember that in my personal life, I have never been fitter or healthier than during the year that I spent in the United States. Not because the United States is an especially fit country as a whole, but because I was a student at the university and had a 24/7 gym ready outside of my my workplace, that was always accessible to me. And that is a far cry from what I'm experiencing today in German businesses, in German cities, in German universities, in German schools. And so it is always about accessibility for people, and most of all for people who do not have the means to take care of their own fitness and wellness by themselves.
Thanks so much, Dennis. And in fact, there's a few things to comment on here. One is that's not usually the story people tell me when they come to the United States. It's usually in the other direction.
That's why I tell it.
But to be fair, the best and the worst resides in the United States. You can find both. So that's one thing I wanted to pick up on. And then secondly, the pharmacy is a really interesting idea because they have prime real estate. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion around, and you've also got the uplift of digital. So people are getting a lot of their prescriptions and a lot of things are sent out now. Everything gets sent out rather than having to go to the store, which then begs the question, to your point, does your 24-hour gym become a part of the pharmacy as part of that prescription? Where you can you're already on a subscription model, they already have all your data, you're already presumably sharing it either with your doctor or whatever, then perhaps you actually have the movement solution to your earlier point, Karl, of actually being there. I would also assume that most pharmacies, at least here in the US, could probably shrink a little bit because most people or a lot of people are beginning to order digitally now and just have their prescriptions filled, or, we love to do the drive-through. Sorry, Karl, but we find many, many ways not to do anything here in the United States, as you know. But that's sort of an interesting, and what, like you said, accessibility, and it's for the great unwashed. People with money can kind of take care of everything, but it's the people that can't. So that's really interesting. Would it be fair to say, final question, Dennis, that the crowd that you're talking to right now are coming to you because they have challenges, or are you seeing there's a trend? I know certainly my kids are much more interested in their health than perhaps we were. Are you having people who have challenges, or are people interested in that preventative health conversation earlier?
I think we're coming from the people with challenges,
right,
and we are moving towards people who are just interested in their personal well-being and in their personal health. And the audience is getting younger every day. And we are already seeing that most of our users online are very young, most of them female, and a lot of them never had contact to our print publications.
Right, wonderful. That's great. So thank you so much. Switching to you, Eric, now. 2015, scientists in Copenhagen collected evidence for best practice prescription across 26 chronic diseases. How do you bring your evidence and your wealth of knowledge to your patients, clients, people that you serve, your audience?
Well, it's interesting that I'm trying to look at this both from the macro and the micro, but from that 30,000-foot viewpoint. The cardiac rehab and the medical fitness aspect has really been around for a while, but it's been around in a small aspect. And I'm going to date myself here by saying that I started a lot of this 35 years ago with diabetes care and self-monitoring And then in the 90s, I moved into cancer wellness, and I have been ecstatic to see that the Cancer Exercise Institute has already trained over 10,000 personal fitness trainers in cancer. And they have a very large international network. And some behind the scenes news, the American Cancer Society and the American College of Surgeons by next year will have exercise and cancer as part of the standard of care for all cancer survivors. And that's really big news, because I remember listening to Dr. Jason Conviser 25 years ago say that any medical condition can be prevented, ameliorated, or maybe cured through exercise. That's behavioral, metabolic, orthopedic, whatever. And he's been banging that drum for a very long time. And so the data is really out there. I mean, you can, I remember a couple of years ago, I did a deep dive into yoga and cancer. And I found that there were thousands of international studies on the effects of yoga training on metastatic breast cancer, on colon cancers, on cancer behavioral issues, et cetera. And was thrilled to see that. But I think that my big thing is that the health clubs in the United States got a sucker punch 2 years ago when they were deemed non-essential by government agencies. And one of the big things with my company right now is to deem them essential businesses. And one of the things we want to look at is that if you can have one element of medical fitness in your health club, whether it's an assessment tool, blood sugar testing, hypertension testing, regular blood labs with companies, so you'll outsource some of your blood labs, but that data is available for your training. All of these things together sort of come into the mix where health clubs will look at themselves differently. Because if something else happens, and of course, I think that it might, that health clubs may have to close their doors again, those that have the medical aspect would be much less likely because they are the essential businesses.
You bring up a great point, and just to pour a little bit more on that. So if you are attending IRSA next week, the new CEO and president, Liz Clark, was specifically brought in to do this. She came from the candy industry as a very strong influencer there. She literally camps out on Capitol Hill, and her remit has been to make fitness essential. So she's busy putting her arms right around every business in fitness, wellness, health, studios, whatever, to try and lead that charge. Incredibly energetic woman who I believe is really going to make some good, and she's forming lots of businesses that are actually supporting that as well. So also just on that a little bit more, Eric, so at the moment we get prescribed pills. We don't get prescribed necessarily fitness apps or things like yoga. I mean, only some of the more progressive people will do that. Why do you think that is, and what can we do to change that even more?
Okay, well, first of all, I will be at IRSA, and I will be talking with Liz, and I will be preaching some of the medical fitness while I'm there. But I think the reason that it's not, well, it is prescribed. I mean, cardiac rehab is prescribed. Cancer wellness has been prescribed. Diabetes has been prescribed, but not in the way that I think. Because if you have a diabetes care program in your health club, but you're not using glucose monitoring, home glucose monitoring, then you're not doing it the right way. And that's a 30-year stab right there. I mean, you should have known this back in the late 80s. And I think that part of the reason is that health clubs don't see themselves as providers. The second reason is that they don't have a lot of the tech tools, like a software program or an app, even if it's just an Apple Watch that's looking at heart rate. And I remember about 4 or 5 years ago when I was at IRSA and I saw how much tech that the Techno Gym had. I was just, they have trillions of bits of information. But I asked one of the guys, who owns that data? What is that data used for? And he said, well, we just give it to our consumers. Well, consumers are the least tech savvy in terms of how they can actually integrate that, in terms of how much better they're going to be. Because I don't know that many diabetic folks that will look at their A1C over time. They just know what the number is. So health clubs need to get a little more savvy on that. And that's really what one of my companies is doing. My Fitness is Medicine, is we want to educate them as a group to understand what a provider is. And a provider is just not a guy in a white coat or a woman in a white coat. It's actually a group of people who are making an impact in their community. And in our case, from a medical standpoint, to get what Paul Zane Pilzer, the economist who spoke at IRSA 10 years ago or 20 years ago, he said, there's 80% of Americans who don't belong to health clubs. Those are the people that we need to get at. And that's really where I think the fitness medicine mindset will come in, as we can have a person like Silver Sneakers you mentioned. But Silver Sneakers is not a data company. They're a marketing company. So they're in there. We'd like to look at the data on Silver Sneakers. And I know there's been some data published on that, but that's really my big overview is health clubs need to look at themselves a little bit differently and say, how can we actually bring these people in chronically, bring them in for a long period of time through tech, through physician relationships, through community programs.
Thanks so much, Eric. Last question, and anyone can answer this. Non-adherence. So here in the US alone, we probably spend 100 or lose $100 billion probably in non-adherence. So people not doing what they are supposed to do. How can technology help to reduce non-adherence to prescribed exercises? Anyone like to take that one?
Sure. I guess besides accessibility, it's all about feedback. And one thing that technology can do in a great way, in a very motivating way, is give you instant feedback and drop that dopamine that you were talking about earlier, Karl. And that is something that more people might be using in the future. And if you interact not only with your device, but with your doctor or your health provider, your prescriber in general, more during the device, that might do the the final 10% to get perfect in that way. But for many people, it might be the first way to get feedback at all if the feedback comes through the device.
Great, thanks so much, Dennis. I'm going to move us into chapter 2, which is how can technology bring back glory to prevention? What a fabulous topic. So health condition, I'm going to start with you, Eric, and then the others can pitch in as well. The number of disease-related apps has been increasing since 2015, 28% to 47%, while those related to wellness has been going in the other direction, 72 to 54%. Why do you think this is, Eric? And how big a role of disease-related apps focused on fitness? What are your thoughts here?
Well, I'm going to come back to the comment that I made about Technogym, and they say they have all this data, but it's for the consumer. And I think that consumers can become overwhelmed. I, as a consumer, sometimes get overwhelmed by specific technologies, and I want to stay within my wheelhouse. And I think that if technology needs to serve the public better, I think that it needs to be something that trainers, and Dennis mentioned this, that you can actually make them feel better about what they're doing, but the trainer will provide the feedback, because the trainer should be a little bit more savvy in terms of how the technology is applied to that 72-year-old woman who's coming in for fall prevention that may not necessarily need to know the app information, but she needs to know what sort of exercises that she needs and the feedback from her trainer. You can say, look what I have on my phone right here. This is fantastic. We're doing a great job. And I think that that's part of the integration.
Great, thanks. Any other comments?
Yes. Eric, I agree. They love to get the feedback. The average age of the patient I work with is 81 years old here.
Wow.
You know, we have some at a high level of ability, mobility, agility, and some who aren't either, who maybe can't get out of a wheelchair, or if they do, they need assistance. But no matter what the case, and oddly, interestingly enough, if you look at the research on this, you'll find that people with Parkinson's are generally not overweight. That's a whole different conversation, a whole different deep dive. But for the ones who are, or anyone who is, if they're looking for weight loss as part of their goal, you would just go like old school. A few years ago, I bought this really fancy, expensive body composition scale. You know, we'll get all the segmental measurements of muscle mass, pounds of muscle, body fat, visceral fat, metabolic age, all these kind of things. And even though this is like the oldest piece of technology I have here, that drives people, especially, I'll tell you, the one that really drives people is the metabolic age and body composition, like body fat. When they're losing the weight and they see, well, I lost 3 pounds. No, I didn't lose 3 pounds. I weigh the same, but 4 months ago, I weighed the same, but now I have like 3 pounds of muscle and more than I So they gained 3 pounds of muscle, lost 3 pounds of fat, or whatever. Sometimes, you know how that can be. But this information and other information too from other data-driven things that we use, so we were tracking information. It really can be a huge way of getting that dopamine going, right? I need more. I want more. I want better results. I have a new baseline now. This is so exciting. People love that. They're not going to sit down and look at a piece of paper and interpret it. That's my job. But I use that stuff. That drives people. And if that keeps them going, you know, we have to find out what keeps them going. That's the main thing. What's going to drive this person to keep going and striving for more?
Yeah, that's a great example, Karl. And I think, why is that so? And I think, because I hear that too, we've got the scales, what drives us, and people are driven by that metabolic age. So if you think about it, that is part marketing. We're all sort of seeking that youthful, I wish I felt like I did when I was younger. I don't want to lose the juice of life, whether you're keeping up with family, grandkids, the rest of it, or you just want to live vibrantly. So I think I can see why that's so important. And I think you've actually answered my next question, which I was going to get you to lead in. So let's now think about, so the pandemic has facilitated two things that's really driving this space right now: digitization, so we now have access to a lot of things, and virtualized treatment. I think a lot of people are used to being in a virtual queue now, or perhaps getting some advice over a screen where they never would have felt comfortable in the past. And this is shifting us to be able to be more proactive in the preventative care space because of access and all of those efficiencies that come with that. So Karl, and I'll start with you and then I'll go to the others. There's no glory in prevention, that quote, which was by a bunch of virologists, I guess, through the pandemic, or Professor Christian Drosten, I guess, to quote one. How can FitTech prove that quote to be wrong? How can we, you've given the example of metabolic age, what are some other things that we can do to make it really sexy to be thinking about things before we even know that they're starting? I think Alzheimer's is a great example, is it not? You know, where people talk about the 20 prior years, etc.
That's a good question. And I hope I can answer it. I'm going to say this. I'll a lot of times use research in a discussion format with, let's say, especially a new or potential customer patient. Here's one example. I was at a luncheon with Maria Shriver and Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote The End of Alzheimer's, great books, a series of books that he does. And so this is 4.5 years ago in New York City. So at that conference, they talked about a study that came out earlier in the year, and this is what I'll say. First of all, I don't know how many people are in the study, a couple hundred at least. All of these people had early stage Alzheimer's. These people did minimum 30 minutes of cardio 5 days a week for 6 months. Now, we use a lot of different testing assessments here, not just movement, but cognition, memory, right? Fine motor skills. So these people in this study, when they did the Stroop's test, when they did some of these other cognitive and reactive and memory tests, the people in the study scored whatever they scored on the baseline before they started this 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day for 6 months of exercise. And nearly straight across the board, almost everybody, high 90 something percentage of these people, not only in their imaging of the brain showed less Alzheimer's in the hippocampus, they scored higher on all cognitive and memory assessments. That right there, and a lot of them regained sense of smell or improved sense of smell. And that's a whole different story about brain-derived neurotrophic factor and the fact that it's created after like 20 minutes or so of elevated heart rate, and how that let's say this growth hormone protein circulates in the brain. It slows the death of dying brain cells, and it can help give birth to new brain cells in 2 areas: hippocampus, olfactory bulb. Hence, improved memory, improved sense of smell, all good. That'll drive people a lot of times. It's like, whoa, really? If I do this? So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but that's what's on my mind.
That's amazing, Karl. And I also feel like I'm going through med school. So this is just awesome to all three of you, learning so much. So thank you. Great answer. I'm going to move on to you now, Dennis. So This year, a study was published in the Environmental Research and Public Health, where the acceptance for digital fitness rose really positively. We saw a very big spike, and then a correlation between time spent physically active during the pandemic and motivation through digital sports. So another way to access sports, I guess. What does this mean in your view for public health? Will the trend continue, and why or why not?
It means that we had a very special environment during the pandemic. And I think that is part of the problem and might be part of the solution in the future. As long as most people in the health industry and most health professionals as well are making their money by trying to cure illnesses of patients, there truly is no glory in prevention in our health systems, no matter what industrialized country you look at. And I guess that most of the time it's not patients and patient interest that drives those systems. But what the pandemic has shown us is that all the talk about how the patients might not be ready for this or that, and especially digitization and self-care and using digital devices to be more fit and live a healthier life, that has not proven true. The pandemic showed us otherwise. So now if we come up with the right data, with the right evidence, with the right research, and if we make the right choices available to more people, that actually might change in the future. And that might be the big solution, which will take time. I think it might take another 20 or 30 years until we see it in most of the industrialized nations. But since we have a demographic change in those countries as well, that makes it, well, inevitable if we want to keep our lives going business-wise, that might actually be happening. And if that comes, the pandemic has at least have some positive results.
Thanks, Dennis. And we're now going to shift into our final part of our story, which is more around how can technology help fitness become the next super pill. I just wanted to acknowledge everyone in the chat. It's been going gangbusters. Thank you everyone for chatting in there, and also to our fabulous panelists. And we might kick back with you, Eric. So how else can technology help fitness become the next super pill? So Anna Martin, a deacon who's a guest at our FitTech Summit, number 6, physical activity and health promotion in esports and gaming. So they have enormous potential to improve users' health and activity in a new place, I guess. And I know we heard earlier in this session from NFTs, etc. How relevant is the gamification trend for the future of public health? And perhaps what are some underestimated trends that could drive this? Do you feel comfortable starting with that, Eric?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not a huge gamification person, but in the last year, I have read more, listened to more, and seen more about gamification in all aspects of the fitness profession than ever before. I mean, people always played fun and games. When I was a kid, we did it on the playground. This is just another version of the playground. And I think that, and I'm actually going to take the gamification and the prevention topics, I'm going to collide them together. If you can get younger people who may be at risk for a disease, so they're still in the prevention stage, to get more active through gamification, then you will actually perhaps prevent something that they may be diagnosed with 5, 10, 15 years in the future by virtue of, just like Karl said, just getting them to move. And that's a real big thing. The only thing that was a little frightening to me is that a lot of these games, and my son is into certain types of gaming things, and he'll sit on the couch for hours. Now, he's a very fit young man, but he's still, as his father, you're playing too much, go outside and get some exercise. But anyway, but if we can use that for seniors, for people with specific diseases like Parkinson's, where they can use a game to help their cognitive abilities, and we can use something for people with weight loss to get them to move in a different way, and we can get them with people with cancer, that we can actually get them on the road to recovery and then again, with cancer, you can prevent the recurrence because the data is pretty clear that people who do exercise as part of cancer recovery have way less recurrence rates than people who are sedentary after their diagnosis. So I want to be able to use the gamification. I'm not going to give any specific recommendations because I don't know any. It's not my area of expertise, but I see the potential. And you're right, prevention's not sexy. And actually, I wrote down Al Lewis, who's a population health specialist, and he wrote a whole book on why prevention is all, not as great as we think it is because people have misinterpreted the data. But I actually think, based on my research from diabetes, that if you can prevent the complications in 20 years through exercise, you're doing a marvelous thing. So you have to define what prevention is. You can still have a disease, but prevent something down the road. And a lot of that is the seriousness of that disease. And if gamification can do that, if some sort of fit technology can do that, and the trainers, the club owners can parlay that to the customers, that's a win for everybody.
Thanks, Eric. And I just want to give a shout out to Debbie in the chat there. The pandemic has called for a reset to feel better. And I think that's never true a word said. So we're really going after the feeling of that. When you fall in love with the feeling of feeling healthy, that is the most powerful thing. Would either of you like to comment on this, or we can move to that? We've got 2 more questions and then I'll do a final round and we will wrap. Great. So I'd now like to step to, there was a study this year, wearable fitness trackers in health centre patients. It was called the All of Us survey. And when you unpack it, it's amazing. So it was across 1,000 patients in the US healthcare system. And it unpacked things like, in order for technology to be able to help us in this situation, we have to be able to have and use a device, okay, which sounds simple. It's not that simple. They have to want to share that data. And we're seeing this a lot in femtech, for example, where women are very motivated because it's been an underserved research group in the past to share their data, to understand all the cycles of being a woman. Must have a smartphone and know how to download apps. So you can see those barriers beginning to build. It must provide relevant health information. So not is my thing tracking over time. They just want to know the number. And is that good or bad? And what do I do about it? The behavioral change piece. Most would like to learn more about devices. That's going to be useful. And they need to get reminders. So I presume that that's going to be some of the Parkinson stuff that's coming out soon. So, question for the group: what can wearables do to improve people's access to medical fitness? And who would like to lead that one?
Well, I'll start by saying the integration of the data from their medical device, what their doctor's providing them, like the blood sugar, Dennis had mentioned, blood sugar testing, your A1C, regular blood pressure testing, blood labs, things that normally people think of as the doctor's office that are integrated into an app that a patient can see. And I'll take everyone back 35 years when I started doing diabetes research. When you saw A1C go down and when you saw fasting blood sugars go down after exercise, there was a period of time where it would consistently go down. That was the motivation. Karl talked about motivation. Dennis talked about motivation. Those numbers are, if they're explained correctly, become the motivation. So the integration of what we normally think of the doctor would see versus what we can now see in the health club setting, crash those two together, and you're going to see some very interesting results.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Any other comments on that?
I do. Just real quick. In the Parkinson's population and movement disorder population, neurological disorders, but specifically Parkinson's, our number one concern are falls. Sadly, the number one cause of mortality in Parkinson's population are complications from a fall statistically. Well, if we look now at if they're able to walk, if anyone's able to walk, well, statistically, walking is our most functional movement for all of us every day if we're able to walk. Well, usually, right? So what would we want to do best in our functional movement? Of all the movements we have, we're going to want to be able to walk, improve our gait, improve our stride symmetry, stride length. We want our arm swing, reciprocal arm swing, hip rotation, trunk rotation, reciprocal, and really optimize gait. And one of the things we notice in Parkinson's, one of the very, very, very first signs of Parkinson's can be diminished arm swing unilaterally on one side. No other sign at all. No memory problems, no tremor, no nothing. Well, that will usually get worse over time and may go bilateral as well. But bottom line is, let's talk about intervention. Okay, so I can visually, which I did for years, actually. I'm pretty good with it, but I mean, I don't have data and numbers in my head when I just visually look at somebody and record them walking, which I will, do a lateral view on a treadmill to see, do they have early heel rise? Are there 5 stages of gait? Where do they fall? What's their push off like? How are they landing? Are they landing flat footed? Are they inverted like they're supposed to be, a little push off? What's it look like? We have, for example, Plantiga makes a beautiful insole that I'm not selling anything. I have no relationship with the company. I'm just saying they have a beautiful insole that measures 150 different parameters, including stride length, stride symmetry, velocity, impact forces. Because a lot of times if our stride is shuffly, we're probably landing a little harder on one foot. And over time, this can wear down, cause muscular imbalances, wear down joints. And now you have, people with Parkinson's are people too, I say as a joke. Parkinson's doesn't define them. They could have had cancer. Maybe they need a new hip, all kinds of problems, just like the rest of us. But the bottom line is, when we can measure things with hard data, like these insoles is just one example, we can create a better, more effective intervention strategy to improve gait, improve optimal movement, and reduce fall risk more effectively. And one thing I'll say is they don't need to know the data unless they want the data, and I'll give it to them. If they're data driven, great. If they're not, if they're just feel good moving better and more confident and secure moving better and safer, that is key. And that is going to drive them to do more. And it's, for me, it's always about what's going to drive these people to do more. It's whatever drives them.
Yeah, that's great. And bringing it right back to those basics. And I think it's not sometimes until we have those basics taken away that we realize the importance of them, because it's that domino effect. This turns into that and it just gets worse. And I'm sure we're all watching some of our older folk in our family go through that as well. Last question, and then I'm actually going to get you all to give one final thought. So according to Jeff Rogers, a global research leader in digital health at IBM at FitTech Summit number 5, said there's still a long way to go until data provided by wearables will broadly impact society. So right now, data from trackers is nothing more than medical entertainment or medutainment. It's about selling watches. So very provocative quote. What do we think it's going to take for our wearables to actually serve the society at a greater level? Let's start with you, Eric, and we'll take this final comment, then I'll get your final thoughts.
Okay, that's interesting, because I'll come back to that comment that I made about Technogym 4 or 5 years ago. And they said, well, we don't really do anything with the data. Until that data is aggregated, analyzed, and published in high impact medical journals, it's irrelevant data. It's not even data. And so that's really, I think, a big thing that's being pushed on by a few companies. Is to look at information, but look at it from the standpoint of how it's aggregated and actually, is it publishable? Because if it goes through a peer review process, you're going to get people who are going to want to kind of dig into a little bit. And that's going to be sort of the new poster child for how well this data from an Apple Watch, from your apps on your phones, it actually can look. Because if doctors see it published, and Karl mentioned a couple really interesting studies in Alzheimer's, I want to look at those studies now. I want to see what's going on.
I'll send it to you.
That's where you start from the scientific standpoint, is doctors will get more interested, and henceforth they will probably refer more people. And if they refer more, the health clubs actually will have that part of that 70 to 80% now come in, and then it's their job to keep them there.
That's great. So peer-reviewed, published, evidence-based is the big part that we need to back into fitness, right? For sure. Comments from the other two?
I want to absolutely underline what Eric just said. It's the key message. It will always be the key message. Publish or perish. And if it's not evidence-based, it doesn't exist. For me, as a medical journalist, it's the first question that we ask journalists that that come with a story to our newsroom and pitch a topic, we ask, where's the evidence? If there's no evidence, it's not a topic that we will cover. And so we have all this knowledge, we have all the learnings, but the medical community and the fitness community have to find a way to put that into publishable data and publish it, let it be peer reviewed, and then it will change the system very much.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Speed round and your final thoughts. So having listened to this whole conversation, having scanned through the questions and the comments from the fabulous people out there, final thoughts. Let's start with you, Eric. We'll go Dennis and we'll finish with you, Karl.
Okay. I like what both gentlemen talked about, of integrating an app on a phone, a smartwatch or something that can be user-friendly and that a person will actually find the humanistic side. Both gentlemen mentioned they're going to have fun. They're going to improve something. It's going to be worthwhile to them. It's not just looking at the phone and saying, oh, look at me, I did 10,000 steps today. That's not as important as I feel better. I'm doing better. My trainer says I'm doing better. I really like this health club because, etc. And it becomes part of the community thing. So this integration of the tech and the community, I think, is going to be the big thing. Dennis, I'm going to agree with you again on the peer review, but we'll integrate, put them all in the bowl of soup, we'll mix it up, and that's where we're going to get a better user experience.
Thanks, Eric. Dennis?
Well, I learned a lot from all three of you in preparation for the talk and during that talk, and it shows me that there's so much that I want to understand further in this integration of fitness and wellness and medical dealings with patients. Thank you so much for letting us have this discussion and for having us all. And I think the key takeaway for me today is to keep in touch and keep talking about those things to be able to integrate those two worlds better.
Thank you so much, Dennis. And Karl, bring us home.
Well, first of all, it's been wonderful to be here. Eric, Dennis, Ima, thank you so much. Eric, you said something that Dennis followed up with, and I think it's many things that were great. But when you said, is it publishable? Bingo, right? So that's one thought. Is it published or is it publishable? I want data. I want research. I want peer reviewed. Okay. So that's really important for me. It may not be to my clients or my patients, but it is for me, so I can do a better job helping them. When it comes to gamification, I have been doing that for years because I found that if we gamify what we do, people are more likely to have fun and they want to come back, and they keep coming and coming, and we come up with new things all the time. I'm lucky I get to travel a lot and teach around the world extensively. So I always say at the beginning of a workshop, I'll learn more than any of you the next 2 days because there's like 40 of you and one of me. I teach a concept, you get creative, and then I learn too. So we gamify. And then I think the last two things real quick is we need to find out what our people will do, whether they're with us in our clinics or at home, because we also give homework assignments with a whole online access to videos they do. We select their workouts for them at home. So we send them home with homework. They get it in their email. Find out what they will do, because if they're not going to do it, there's no use. All right. So that, and the famous 3 words I say all the time, just get started. That's it.
I love that. So I want to thank all the panelists and all the people who have watched this and will watch this. So everyone is available on LinkedIn if you want to delve in and get more information. We will see some of you at Ursa. I see Natalia's in there scanning people for the FitTech Club, see if it's a fit. And my takeouts from this fabulous session: publish or perish, move, and all people are dealing with something. Okay, so let's just find a way to motivate everyone. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thanks, Natalia.
Guys, can we just have one thumbs up screenshot right now? Thanks. So guys, like, I really feel like I just got my PhD in medicine. So thank you so much for those great insights. Guys, I promised you my takeaways. I don't know if you need those, but I'll just try to sum it up for you, for those of you who missed some points from the last 3 sessions. So thank you guys again for being with us. So probably, what we're noticing right now is the shift from preventive to preventive healthcare. So we're seeing the fusion of fitness and health, and the healthcare itself is becoming more proactive. Basically, the fitter you are, the healthier you are as well. And there's also the clear association between the mental health and physical fitness, as well as general health and physical fitness. There are also studies that show the positive influence of high intensity training on metabolism and of course on longevity. Some of you who know me know that I love sharing the books and the insights. So one book that I would like to share with you today is this one. It's called Jellyfish Age Backwards. It's about longevity. And this is exactly what they found out, that the combination of cardio, high intensity, and strength training is basically the best one for your body in terms of the functioning of internal organs. And what we also see is the emerging clinical role of wearables. They need to be data-based, they need to be, you have to publish it or perish, as you said, and they need to have the real interoperability standards for across different devices, but also across different actors in the healthcare and fitness space. So guys, we think that technology can really bring glory back to prevention, where we'll have informed and personalized health decisions made by patients, right? Where patients will also be more empowered by data, and doctors in turn will also have to become more empowered and more data driven, because like I myself have left my doctor here in Germany because he was like laughing at my wearables and data and all those things I was bringing to him, like asking him for like for helping me to understand the context for some specific things, and he was like, I don't know, it's like not serious. I was like, okay, goodbye. So I'm changing the doctor, I'm going to a new one. So that really helps. And probably what last but not least is that we think first of all, next big thing in wearables is going to be more precise, more like it's going to be going into the direction of blood pressure monitoring, glucose monitoring. So wearables are entering health space. And although health clubs do not see themselves as providers just yet, as health providers just yet, this will also change. So better user journeys are super important. On the fitness side, but also on the health side, the use of data interoperability is super important. And yeah, of course, having fun, gamification is one of the aspects that's probably entering the healthcare space in the next years in more detail and more intensely. So guys, let's hit the street. Let's connect to each other. Let's try to make humankind healthy again together. Next step for us, for the club, for the FitTech Club, and also for the FitTech company is seeing each other at URSA in Miami on June 23rd. So this is for club members, for speakers. Eric and Karl, of course, you are very welcome. Dennis, in case you should be in Miami, let me know. We'll get you on board as well. Guys, if you think you should be joining as a special guest, drop me a line and we'll see if we consider you for this time at URSA. And also, the very next FitTech Summit, the offline, finally offline FitTech Summit, will take place on September 29th in Munich, or not far from Munich. Dennis will be guests at Wort and Bild Verlag at the publishing house. We'll have a great party there. So guys, keep an eye on that. Thanks for being with us and see you very soon. Stay fit.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.